sweet ladies, you're welcome back to my channel. My name is Yinka. In today's tutorial, we're going to be learning how to make this beautiful dress. I know a lot of people are anticipating this particular tutorial because I posted it on my Facebook that I'm going to make a tutorial on it, and people have been waiting. Alright, so you have it today, so let's get started. So I use 4 yards of Ankara fabric. You need your lining, you need bra cups. This chain is optional because I just use it to decorate the style. It's not necessary. Need chiffon for the sleeve, and also you'll be needing interfacing, then your zip. Alright, so the first step is to fold your fabric into two, and note I already fused this lining with stay. I put stay inside it. Alright, so I'll take my guideline. I'm going to be drafting a princess that was there first. So from the guideline, I measured the length of my armhole, my nipple points, my underbust, and then my waist length with my ½ inch seam allowance. Then I extend the lines. Alright, so on my guideline, put my shoulder measurements divided by 2. Then I measure same measurements on the chest line, and then I'll roll it into a straight line to get my armhole. So starting from the folded edge, I measure 3 inches. Then I drop the shoulder by 1. I connect it together. I added my seam allowance to the shoulder this way. Then from the 1-inch shoulder drop, I measure down to the chest line and then locate the mid armhole this way. Then I go to the nipple point. That is my nipple point. I input my nipple to nipple distance divided by 2 plus ½ inch seam allowance. I input it, then I roll it straight down to the waistline. Then I also connect it to the mid armhole this way. Then after that, I take in my dart. At this side, I took ½ inch dart on both the waistline and the underbust line. Then I connect it together like this to the nipple point. At this side, I took 1½ inch dart on the underbust line and also on the waistline. Then first you roll it straight like this from underbust to waistline. Then from the underbust, you use the curved part of the ruler to connect it to the nipple point. This way. Then from the mid armhole, you come down by 1½ inch. And then you use the curved part of the ruler to connect from the nipple point to that point. And ensure you extend the line by 2 inches this way. Then after that, you can finish off the armhole. After that, the next thing is to take in your circumference measurement. So on the chest line, you input your bust measurement divided by 4. And on the waistline, you input your waist measurement divided by 4. So after that, you connect it this way. So the next thing is to replace all your dart intake. So whatever dart intake you took on the waistline, you replace it at the waistline this way. Then at the chest line, you measure the distance of the dart intake there and you replace it this way. Then the next thing is to add your seam allowance. So I added 2½ inch seam allowance on the chest line and also 2½ inch allowance on the waistline. Then I connect it together. Can you see? Alright, so this other side on the waistline, you come up by 1 inch and then you blend it to the dart leg this way. So the next thing is to determine your neckline. For the neck depth, I measure 3 inches and the neck width is 5 inches. Then I connect it together this way. Alright, so this style is having a yoke, so you determine the depth of your yoke. For the depth of my yoke, I measure 6.5 inches downward from the starting point. Then I connect it to the mid armhole like this. All right, so this is it now. The next thing is to use this my lining to cut out the main fabric. So I folded the main fabric into two. You can see I already fused the main fabric also with my stay, a very soft stay. That's what I use here. So I placed the lining because I dropped the pattern on the lining, so I place it on top of the main fabric. Then I'll use it and cut it out. All right, so I'm done cutting and this is it. So I'll take the body aside and then I'll work on the yoke. Then I'll use the yoke to cut out the Ankara fabric. You can see I added 1 inch to the bottom part of the yoke, and I'll use this Ankara fabric yoke that got out to cut out the chiffon. All right, so I've used the Ankara fabric to cut out the chiffon yoke as well, and they are exactly the same size. All right, so moving on, the next is to draft the back. The back already fills the body with stay, both the lining and the main fabric, as you can see, and the lining is folded into two. The Ankara is also folded into two. Then I'll rule my guideline. And please note the center back is on fold. I will explain to you the reason why I place it on fold later on. Alright, so I'm going to measure my zip allowance. I use 2 inches for my zip allowance. Then I'm just going to roll it straight down this way. The zip allowance is 2 inches. And the center back is on fold. Alright, so from the guideline, I'll measure down the length of my armhole, same as you use in front. Then my waist length with my seam allowance. And note the back waist length is going to be reduced by 1. You know, we shape the side of the front by 1 inch. Alright, so I'll rule the line and extend everything like this. Alright, so all your measurements will start from this line, but before then, let me slant the zip allowance. So from the center back, you go in by 1/2 inch. That's for those people who want to do a normal back with zipper. We are not doing that, but I'm just going to explain in case you don't want the type of back I'm doing here. Alright, so from the line, I'll measure down the shoulder divided by 2. Don't mind the way I'm doing here, sometimes I do this. Alright, so just input the shoulder measurement divided by 2 on the guideline, then you rule it into a straight line like this to the chest line. Then after that, from the line you measure 3 inches, then you drop the shoulder and then you connect together. Then you add your seam allowance to that shoulder slope. Then after that, you input your circumference measurements. On the chest line, you input your bust circumference divided by 4 with your seam allowance. I added 2 inches seam allowance. Then on the waistline, you input the waist measurement divided by 4 with 1 inch for the dart and then 2 inches seam allowance. For this time, we don't need that, but I'm just trying to explain in case you don't want the type of back I'm doing. Then after that, you finish the armhole with your French cuff. So the next thing is to measure the neck width, same as what you use in front. The neck width in front is 5, so I measure the 5. So the depth of your neckline is optional. You can do whatever you want for the neck depth. Then if you're doing a normal back, just input your dart. From the center back line, you measure the nipple to nipple distance. You roll it straight to the chest line this way. Then you take 1/2 inch dart on both sides of that line on the waist line. And then your dart stop 1 inch before your chest line. Then after that, you connect these points together. Alright, so that is it for those doing a normal back. So like I said, the width of the neckline is 5 inches. The depth of the neckline depends on what you want. So in my own case, I just connect it from the neck width slightly like this to the waistline. On the waistline, starting from that center back line, I measured 1 inch inward like this. Then I just blend the line starting from that neck width to that 1 inch after the zip allowance line on the waistline like this. Can you see? The neck width is 5, then distance here is 1 inch. 1 inch. Alright, so this whole place now is going to be your back cover. That's why I said you should place it on fold. Can you see? So we cancel the zip allowance now. We are not going to cut it out. Do you understand? Then we also cancel the dart, because this particular one we don't need the dart. The distance the width of the dart is 1 inch, so I'm going to take that 1 inch out of my measurement and at this side seam. You can see, just measure 1 inch on the waistline and blend it back to the chest line this way. Can you see? So you're going to cut it out now. Just look at the way I'm going to cut it out. So like I said, there will be no dart. So just cut it out this way. Cut on the shoulder, then the armhole cuff, then the side seam. So I didn't fast forwarded this part because I want us to understand it very well. You can see the way it is. The reason for placing the back on fold is because we want to use this part here to cut out the back cover. So from the chest line, you can just measure 2 inches above like this and cut it off. We don't need that part again. You don't need that part. So this part here now is your back cover. You know, that part that is going to cover the loop at the back in case you don't want to expose your back. You understand? So this is what I'm going to use for it. You can see from the chest line is 2 inches more like this. So that's the reason for placing the center back on fold. All right, we're done with the back. All right, so the next is to cut the lower part of the gown. So you just measure the remaining length of your gown. So just measure it this way and then you cut it out. Make sure you add your seam allowance to the down part. The down part is just a gather. So the width of the gather is your waist circumference multiplied by 3, and then the length is the remaining length of your gown with your allowance. Just subtract the waist measurement from the total length, and then the remaining length is the remaining length of the down part. All right, so this is the summary. This is the back. We have 2 sides and then the center piece for covering the back like this. Can you see? This is how the back looks. And then we have lining for all of them. So this is the front. And then we have the yoke as well. The yoke is 2. We cut the yoke on Ankara and also on chiffon because we are going to be placing the chiffon on top of the Ankara so that the upper part can be covered as well. And then the length of your gown. Also, I cut out my sleeve. So I'm going to be sewing it now, and I'm going to start with the yoke. So I placed the 2 yoke together, the Ankara and the chiffon, and then I sew it on the neckline. After sewing, I notch the neckline and then I turn it like this. Ensure you iron. Have ironed mine. You can see the way it is. So the next is to join the body of the front part. You join both the lining and the Ankara. So I'm going to go ahead and join. Alright, so I'm done joining. I've joined both the lining and also the main fabric. You can see the way it is. So the next is to attach my bra cup to the lining. So just place the bra cup on the nipple point like this and pin it. Can you see? Then after that you just sew it all around. All right, so after sewing, you take off your pin, and you can see the way it is. And then this is the main fabric. The breast area is standing because we put stay inside the Ankara. Then this is the yoke. The next thing is to attach your yoke. First, I notch the center of the yoke like this, and then I also notch the center of the main fabric. Then after that, I place them on top of each other, right side to right side, and then I stitch together. So after stitching, it looks like this. The next thing is to use the lining to turn this part. So I just pin the yoke together with the body this way. Can you see, so that it can be flat at that middle like that. So place the lining on top of it. Don't forget to also notch the center of the lining like this, and then ensure you match them together at the center, and then you pin. So the next thing is to turn it, and then you're going to sew from your previous line. The line you sewed before, just follow it and sew. Then after that, you notch. Notch very close to the seam, but don't cut your seam. And then it's going to look like this. So next is to close the side. Just use the lining to turn the side of the main fabric this way. So we are done with this. I'll keep it aside so that we can work on the back. Alright, so I just cut out a strip of fabric that measured 1.5 in width, and then the length as much as I want. So I fold it this way into two, and then I run my stitch. I'm going to be using this to create the loop at the back of the dress. So after that, I cut it into smaller pieces like this. The length here is 3 inches. The length is 3 inches. Cut as much as you need. Alright, so this is the back. So I'll place them back on top of each other like this, so that I can mark the position where I want to put the loop. So from the top, I measure 7 inches downward, and then I note that point. Note your shockings is going to be on the right side of the wrapper. Then at that point, I measure distance of 2 inches. The distance is 2 inches like this, all the way to the waistline. You stop 1 inch before you get to the waistline. Can you see? So those are the points that my loops are going to be. So the next thing is just to place your loop, and then you sew it on those your shocked points. So you are going to fold the strip you cut out into two like this, creating a loop, and then you place it on those your shocked line, on those your shocked points. And note the loop is going to be on the right side of the dress. It's going to be on the right side, so just place it on it, and then you keep stitching it on those your points. So when you're done stitching the loop on it, the next is to turn with the lining. So place the right side of the lining on top of the main body like this. Right side will be facing each other this way. So just place the lining on top of the main fabric, and then you stitch together with 1/2 inch seam allowance. So don't forget to notch it as well. Then after that, you open it up this way. You can see the way it is. When you open it up like this, you are going to top stitch. So just push all the seam allowance towards the lining and then you top stitch. And you can see I'm top stitching from the right side of the fabric. The reason for top stitching is for the loop to relax nicely. It will just remain flat. Alright, so I'm done top stitching and this is how it looks so far. So the next thing is to take the back cover. You can see the back cover. You're going to sew the back cover all around. You just leave a little space where you'll be able to bring it out to the right side. So I'm going to stitch the lining and the main fabric together with 1/4 inch, and then I left a little opening where I can bring it to the right side. So after turning it to the right side, the next thing is to close that little opening that you left. So just push the raw edges inside like this. Push it inside and then you're going to just stitch on it so that you can close that little opening that you left. Alright, so the next thing now is to attach the back cover to the main dress. So just place the two of them together, just one side of the back. Place the back cover on top of it, right side facing each other like this. You can see the way it is. Then you stitch together. And then you can see the back cover is 2 inches longer than the main fabric at the down part. You can see the way I did it. Just place them on top of each other, right side to right side, and then you stitch it on that line that you top stitch earlier on that your top stitch line. And when you're sewing, you will not sew it all the way to the waistline. You stop 1 inch before you get to the waistline. You can see the way it is. Can you see? You can see the distance is 1 inch, and then the back cover is longer. I adjusted it such that it's longer than the main body. So this is how you're going to do it. You're not going to top stitch the other side on it. You're going to top stitch just on only one side. So at the end of the day, after sewing, it's going to be like this. You can see we only attach the back cover to only one side of the back. So the next thing you want to do now is to close the side of the back. So just use lining to turn the side so that the side seam can be fine. You can see the way it is now. We have turned the side seam also. You also do the same thing to the second side that you attach the back cover. So just flip it the way I flipped it, and then use lining to turn the side seam. Don't forget you're sewing with 1/2 inch seam allowance. Alright, so the next thing now is to grab the front, and then you are going to join the shoulders together. So place the front and back together, right side to right side, and then you are going to turn the shoulder like this. And then you stitch the shoulders together with 1/2 inch seam allowance. So when you're done with one side, repeat the same thing to the second side. Alright, so we have joined the shoulders together, and this is how it is looking so far. So the next thing you want to do now is to attach your sleeve. Like I said, your choice of sleeve depends on what you want. But if you would like to see a tutorial on how I made the sleeve, let me know in the comment section so that I can drop the tutorial. Alright, so I am done attaching my sleeves. The next thing now is to close the side. So just mash them together at the side like this, and then you're going to close with your seam allowance. You can see my seam allowance is still showing there, so I'll just connect together and close the side seam. Alright, I'm done closing one side. You also close the second side. Make sure the distance of the allowance is equal with the second side as well. So alright, I'm done closing the two sides of the upper bodice, and this is how it's looking. So if you measure the waist circumference now from this point, from this particular point, if you measure it, I have 24 inches. I have exactly 24 inches. But my client's waist circumference measurement is 27. Alright, so the waist circumference is reduced by 3 inches already. Alright, so moving on, we are going to be gathering the lower part of the gown. So just run your gather stitch on the remaining down part, and then when you're done running the gathering stitch, you're going to pull your gather. You put the gather to waist circumference measurement minus 1 inch. My client's waist circumference measurement is 27, so the gathered part here, I pull my gather to 26 inches. So I reduce 1 inch from our waist circumference measurement. Next, you are going to fold it into two this way. Can you see? Fold it into two like this. And then from the top part, you measure 9 inches. From the top part, measure 9 inches. And then you're going to make a point, and then you're going to close it all the way from that point. You close it down with ½ inch seam allowance. All the way down. So when you're done closing the side, the next thing you want to do is to hem the bottom part of the gown like this. So just fold it 2 times, and then you're going to make your stitch. Don't forget, you're going to hem the lower part using the allowance you added to the remaining length. Alright, so when I was done with the lower part, I went back to the upper part of the gathered part, and then I run my stay stitch on the gathered part so that the gather will not come and extend more than what I want. So I just run a straight stitch so that I can keep the gather in place. So the next thing you want to do now is to attach it to the upper part. Alright, so this is the upper part. First, you push the back cover away like this. Push it out of the way like this so that you can see the actual waist line. So place the gathered on top of it. Let the gathered part be 1½ inches. Let it be 1½ inches more than the main fabric before you start stitching them together. So just measure 1½ inch, and then you start stitching the two of them together like this. I hope it's clear. If you have any question, please kindly leave it in the comment section and I'm going to answer you. Alright, so you're going to join the gathered part and the upper part together with half-inch seam allowance. So by the time you get to the other side, you will discover that the gathered part also will be 1.5 inches more than the main dress. So can you see it? So the next thing you're going to do is to attach your zip. So we are using 1/2 inch for the zip. So place the zip and then you stitch it all the way to where you have the joining the lower part of the gathered part. When you're done with one side of the zip, you also join the second side. Don't forget we're joining this zip to the main fabric using 1/2 inch. I'm done attaching the zipper. The next thing now is to turn with lining. So just fold the inside inward the way I've done here. You can see. So the next thing now is to place the lining on top of it, and you're going to start stitching the lining from where your zipper starts from. So place the lining on top of it like this. Can you see? So first you sew past the zip by 1/2 inch, then from that point you continue to pleat the lining. Then the lining is 2 times the circumference of the waist measurement. All right, the lining is twice the circumference of the waist measurement. So when you get back to where the zipper is at this side, just keep the needle in and then you stitch the lining on top of the zip this way all the way to where the zipper stops. Then when you're done with this side, you go back to the second side. You can see this is the second side. You also stitch the lining on top of the zipper this way. Then when you're done, the next thing is now for you to close the lining too at the lower part. See the way I've done it? Just flip the fabric out of the way like this, and then from where you stop the stitching, you're going to sew the lining together all the way to the hem of the lining. And that's it, our dress is ready. If you turn it to the wrong side, this is how it looks from the inside, and then the wrong side in front is looking like this also. Don't forget to also create a strip that you're going to use to fasten the lace at the back of the dress. And that's the end of the class. You can see how neat it is at the back. This is the zipper side, can you see? And then this is the back cover. Everything is looking neat and pretty. And this is the wrong side of the front. And this is the right side of the back. And the fit on my client is so beautiful, and she really love her dress. Thanks for watching. Please, if you have not subscribed to this channel yet, please kindly subscribe, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and also like and share with your friends. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.